everybody praise
Let everybody praise him.
Let everything that have breath praise the Lord forever and ever.
Let everything praise thy God now.
Come on, yeah, come on, come on,
Thank you for tuning into Bethel, BHG TV. Like, share, and subscribe. Now our host, Pastor Johnson.
All right, brothers and sisters. All right. It's that time. Yep, we got a good night tonight. You are going to be in for a treat. Shout out. Brother Scott and Sister Erica Landley up in Alaska's in the house. Rabin Harrell from Oregon in the house. Our first moderator, Brother Landon DePaul, in the house. All right, brothers and sisters, this is what it's about. It's about tonight. We're doing a series tonight, tomorrow night, the rest of the month, pertaining to history, according to the prophets, according to the Bible. And we have a treat for you tonight. And that treat encompasses some information that will be extremely valuable to you. You're going to enjoy. These are a couple of presentations. You will enjoy them. And Shonas, thank you for coming in. Linda Pettaway, thank you for coming in from the Atlanta camp. All right. We are simulcasting on Facebook and YouTube, 2 Facebook pages and YouTube all at the same time. So shout out to all those that are in the Facebook world. So I am going to get out of the way. Tonight we're going to have 2 presentations. You will enjoy them. I'll be right here. You wouldn't, trust me, you're going to enjoy them. And I want to say shout out to Minister Mike Norman over there in Durham, North Carolina. He did a music video called Great Gathering, and we're going to play that video as a song. It's a song play. They did it. It's a nice video production regarding well, I won't tell you about it, but it's appropriate for the month. So you're gonna be getting some treats tonight, tomorrow night. And so that being said, brothers and sisters, hit the like button, hit the thumbs up button. Let's build up the algorithm and let's get this thing rolling. All right, let's get it rolling. So all of you all that are over there in our chat room. I don't have it set up properly, but I'm going to move it over there right now and get it set up. There we go. All right, there we go. So all of you all are over there that are coming in tonight. Thank you for that. And we always start off the lesson with the scripture. And we're going to do that and then get right into it. So our scripture reading tonight is from the book of Psalms 111. Let me move it over. Psalms 111, verse 10. And as it says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. All right. The fear of the Lord is the beginning of wisdom. A good understanding have all they that do his commandments, his praise, and do it forever. A couple of people to keep in prayer. My brother over there in Brother Apollo, over there in Apollo Beach, Florida. He comes online. He has a friend that is going through, brothers and sisters. Please keep him in prayer. All right. Let me go over here and just get his name. He has, and keep us. Sister Sheila Clater has passed away. Do keep her son in prayer. Brother Tobiah and Vickers, Sister Linda Jones Vickers' husband, he lost his mother. Keep him also in prayer. Let me give you this brother's name because, he asked that we do that. So the young man's name is Michael Chang. We're going to keep Michael Chang in prayer. And that came over from Brother Richard over in Apollo Beach, who's always online with us. So we just want to let you know that these are people to keep in prayer. All right, let's get started with this lesson tonight. You're going to enjoy this presentation. You're going to be tremendously blessed from it. I know that you are. And I want you to check it out. And I want to leave this app for you while we're letting people tune in. This is the IOG app. This is an app that is a small monthly subscription fee, but you can get lessons like the one that was taught this Sabbath. And you can get it on demand and go back and watch it over and over and over. So here is some information on the IOG app. And I'm going to tell you about the app as it goes through. Here we go right here, brothers and sisters. App you can get online. You can listen to lessons while you're driving. Also, you can, wherever you're going at, this is just a wonderful app. You can search for your lessons by title, teacher, or subject. That's something that you would like to do. And you can stream unlimited lessons on your tablet, your phone, your laptop. And then you could Chromecast it or AirPlay it right on your TV. So this is the app you can get from the Apple Store or the Google Play Store. All right, so check that out. Go get it. It's just a small monthly subscription fee. All right. That being said, let's get right into this lesson. You enjoy.
The truth. A light in the darkness. A word of restoration. A revelation of who you are. We search for it. We pursue it. Then one day, you find it. Follow it wherever it leads. No matter what people say. And you may be surprised just what you may find. And the revelations just may change your life forever. Captivity. That's why it's important. Congratulations, you found the truth. The Jews of Spain and Portugal were black. And if they're black, that means they look like you. However, your excitement quickly turns to sadness and anger when you realize you've been lied to. All this time, people from the church and the so-called historians told you the idea of Israel being black was a lie, made up. However, you found books from the 1600s, 1700s, and 1800s describing the Jews as black. As the following reference reads, and it reads, the Spanish Jew is always dark complexion. 'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews. Located at the bottom, lips very full, mouth projecting, chin small, and the whole physiognomy, the way they look, when swarthy or when black, as it often is, has an African look. Thus, the black color is found not only in individuals as the Black Jews of Portugal. The Jews of Portugal are very dark. King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called. As you can see, Jews were referred to as black, swarthy, dark complexion, and African looking in the old books. So if anyone tells you that black Jews were dreamed up by some guy in Chicago in the 1960s or some black guy in the late 1800s, now you know that that person either hasn't read old books or he or she is intentionally lying to you. And keep in mind, the evidence doesn't just consist of old books. Proof includes paintings from the 1500s. It includes stone depictions of Jews before the birth of the Messiah. It includes skulls of ancient Spanish and Portuguese Jews, which match present-day Negroes. It includes names of black Portuguese Jews found on the transatlantic slave ship Manifest. And it also includes DNA. A comprehensive list of overwhelming evidence can be found in movies such as Hebrews to Negroes by Brother Ron Dalton Jr. and the upcoming Reclaiming the Thrones movie by Moraes to Cole Williams and Josh Cullens. This truth will reach the four corners of the earth. The undeniable truth of hundreds of thousands of black Jews in Spain and Portugal less than 10 years before the start of the transatlantic slave trade. In the very countries who started the transatlantic slave trade. You see, in 1492, a great persecution of these black Jews broke out in Portugal by King John II. This history is undisputed. Now, historians, however, often fail to mention the old books which state that these Jews were black. They were literally called black or Negro Portuguese, which is the Portuguese word for black. Let's see what happens to these Negro Portuguese Jews just before the start of the transatlantic slave trade. The Jews and Moors in Spain, page 214. The king's creed awoke again simultaneously with the reawakening of his greed. He issued an edict which threw even that of Torquemada in the shade. All Jewish children below 14 years of age were torn from their parents' arms, dragged into the church, baptized. Those under 3 years of age were given to Christians to receive a Christian education, or in other words, to be raised as slaves. Those between 3 and 10 years of age were put on board of a ship and conveyed to the newly discovered unwholesome island of St. Thomas, called the Isles of Perdition, which was colonized by Portuguese condemned criminals to fare there as best they could. Those between 10 and 14 years of age were sold as slaves. Then indeed the cup of their affliction was full to the brim. It was a stern truth which Lanu uttered. The Jews have experienced fully the unequal skill of the church in administering pain. Mothers cast themselves at the feet of the tyrants and pitifully begged to be taken with their babies. They were heartlessly thrust aside. Hundreds of mothers, mad with despair, ran behind the ships as they carried off the idols of their heart and perished in the waves. The serene fortitude with which the exiled people had borne such many and such grievous calamities gave way at last and was replaced by the wildest paroxysms of despair. Piercing shrieks of anguish filled the land. Childless and brokenhearted, they now sought to leave the land, but they were told that they had forfeited their right, and they were given the choice between baptism and slavery. Thousands, after enduring all that they did, after leaving their beloved Spain and all their wealth and ease, submitted to baptism now in the hope of being reunited with their children. Thousands were sold as slaves. Yet, prior to being sold, they were submitted to tortures, cruelties, outrages too revolting, too repulsive, too heartrending to be here narrated. Now, just keep in mind that this is less than 10 years before the start of the transatlantic slave trade against the black Jews of Portugal. And it reads, "Terror seized upon the native Portuguese Jews when they helplessly beheld the cruelties to which their Spanish brethren were subjected. They knew then they themselves could not escape the wrath of the church much longer. And they thought of flight, and well had it been for them had they made their escape then. While they were making secret preparations, John II died in 1495. He had been afflicted on the very day when the ships laden with the Jewish exiled children set sail for the Isle of the condemned criminals with a strange, painful malady, and had lingered ever since. His own promising son and successor preceded him into the grave. His cousin Manuel ascended the throne. He was the counterpart of his predecessor, kind-hearted and a promoter of learning, eager to further the interests of his country by discoveries abroad and by commerce at home. Immediately, he disenfranchised the Jewish exile sold into slavery, promised to recall the condemned children, and issued an edict in which he commanded kind treatment to the Jews and prohibited accusations against them. In their great joy, the native Portuguese Jews sent an embassy to him, offering him large sums of money voluntarily as a token of their gratitude. The king thanked them, reassured them of his goodwill, but refused to be paid for human kindness. But again had destiny decreed that a woman was to play an ignoble part in the tragic history of the Jews. A marriage was proposed between Manuel of Portugal and the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabel of Spain. Manuel was rejoiced with the proposal. Already he saw himself the near future king of United Spain and Portugal and of the entire New World. But Satan stepped between, dipped his pen in gall, writing the marriage contract, demanded as one of the conditions the immediate expulsion from Portugal of all the Jews, both natives and exiles. The king hesitated. The fanatical daughter of fanatical parents persisted. Argument made her more vehement. Torquemada might well be proud of his pupil, the possession of vast empires and of the most powerful crown of Europe, tempted and the tempter conquered. He had purchased his right to the princess of Spain at a sacrifice of thousands and thousands of lives, with the destruction of the very pillars of his nation's prosperity. On the 30th of November, 1497, the marriage contract was signed, and on the 20th of the following month appeared the edict of expulsion of the Jews from Portugal. The scenes of mourning and wailing and heartrending cries which resounded in Spain re-echoed in Portugal, only the more painful because of the terrible knowledge they had since acquired the meaning of the word expulsion. Manuel soon regretted his signing away his most industrious, most intelligent, and most prosperous citizens, but the marriage contract held him fast, and the Spanish queen kept a watchful eye on him, and Torquemada upon both. The prospective vast empire and the Spanish crown still dazzled his eye. He planned a strategy. He thought he could force the parents to embrace Christianity and to remain, if he once succeeded in getting all their children into his power and into the Christian faith. He gave secret orders for the repetition of the atrocious crime of having all children under 14 years of age seized from their mother's bosom and father's arm, dispersed through the kingdom to be baptized and brought up as Christians. The secret became known. Portugal again re-echoed the wails of stricken ones. Fanatic mothers threw their children into deep wells or rivers. Mothers were known to take their babies from their breasts and tear them limb from limb, rather than to resign them to Christians. They would rather know the bodies of their children in the graves and their released spirit in heaven than have them adopt a faith into which Satan sent his friends for their schooling. With all the parents' opposition, the king's order was executed. Many accepted baptism, but not enough to please the king, and to wreak vengeance upon them for thwarting his wishes. He revoked his edict and seized all who had not yet fled and sold them as slaves. Black Jews were sent to the west coast of Africa in great numbers, less than 10 years before the start of the transatlantic slave trade. To learn more about the fate of these black Jews, be sure to check out Hidden Hebrews 2 for more shocking truths and evidence. And also check out the upcoming movie Reclaiming the Throne, due out in April of 2020. Now, before ending this video, I'd like to leave you with a scripture from the Messiah, Yeshua HaMashiach. If you ever wondered, what's the most important thing? What's the most important instruction or commandment? Well, let's take a look at the most important thing according to the Messiah himself. Mark chapter 12, verse 28 reads, "And one of the scribes, and having heard them reasoning together, and perceiving that he had answered them well, asked him, Which is the first commandment of all? And Yeshua answered him, The first of all commandments is, Hear, O Yisrael, Elohim thy Yahuwah is one. And thou shalt love Yahuwah thy Elohim with all thy heart, and with all thy soul, and with all thy mind, and with all thy strength. This is the first commandment. And the second is like, namely this, Thou shalt love thy neighbor as thyself. There is none other commandment greater than these. And the scribe said unto him, Well, master, thou hast said the truth, for there is one Elohim, and there is none other but him. And to love him with all the heart, and with all the understanding, and with all the soul, and with all the strength, and to love his neighbor as himself. is more than all whole burnt offerings and sacrifices. And when Yahshua heard that he had answered discreetly, he said unto him, Thou art not far from the kingdom of Elohim. And no man after that durst ask him any questions. Israel, thank you for watching. Thank you, my brothers and sisters, for your support and prayers. And if you'd like to support via Patreon, visit our Patreon site in the description box below and become a $1 Patreon supporter. Well, stay blessed, my family, and shalom. The Jews. The Jews are composed of 3 or 4 separate racial elements. The Asiatic Negroid strain shows itself occasionally with the curly hair, the long eye, and proportions of the skull. The Jewish hybrids with the Negro in Jamaica and Guana reproduce most strikingly the Assyrian type. You see, Jews were called Negro, which is the Spanish and Portuguese word for black. Both Spanish and Portuguese Jews were called Black Jews. For example, in this quote it reads, King John II in 1492 expelled all the Jews to the island of St. Thomas, which had been discovered in 1471, and to other Portuguese settlements on the continent of Africa. And from these banished Jews, the Black Portuguese, as they are called. It reads, thus the black color is found not only in individuals, as the Black Jews of Portugal. And it reads, "'Tis also a vulgar error that the Jews are all black, for this is only true of the Portuguese Jews, who marrying always among one another, beget children like themselves, and consequently the swarthiness of their complexion is entailed upon their whole race, even in the northern regions." Now notice how first-hand accounts line up with Bible verses such as Lamentations chapter 5 verse 10, where it reads, "Our skin is black like an oven because of the terrible famine." Now, not only did Europeans refer to the Jews as black, Arabs also referred to the Jews as black. Now, the Arab word for black is referred to as Sudan. S-U-D-A-N. The following references read, the Arabic word for blacks is Sudan. And then the reference at the bottom reads, they call it Balad Sudan, which means land of the blacks. Sudan is the Arabic word for black person. Now notice that Sudan is spelled two different ways. S-U-D-A-N is the modern day spelling. However, the antiquity spelling was S-O-U-D-A-N, So-U-Dan, which is simply two words combined into one, So-U-Dan. Now, let's use Google Translate to look up the meaning of the words so Yudan. Now, we will use Hausa language, which is located in the So Yudan, to translate the word Yudan. Now, let's take a quick look at the Hebrew meaning of the words so Yudan. After all, Hebrew is the native tongue of the Jews. To do this, we will start with Strong's Concordance H5471. That's Strong's word H5471, which is so. And if we look at the definition of the word so, it reads of foreign origin. That's of foreign origin. And if we put that together, we look at the Hebrew translation. So means foreigner or of foreign origin. And Yudan equals Judah, which is H3063, which represents the southern kingdom. And if you put the two together, you get foreigners of Judah. So on our map, we have So Yudan, which in Hebrew represents the foreigners of Judah. Now, let's cross-check our Google translation findings using additional references. For example, the index in the back of the Talmud, Volume 3, reads, Yudan, a variant of Judah in the 4th century. And our next reference reads, Yudan equals Judah. Now, let's take a look at additional references to see exactly who lived in the So Yudan. The Jews. The Jews of So Yudan are, according to my informers, divided into many large and small tribes, with whose names they are unacquainted. Their mode of life in some countries is pastoral. But the towns are filled with traders and artificers of that faith, who gain a substance at their several employments in the service of the Muslims, under whose government they live as vassals. This in reference to Mr. Bodwich's kingdom of Yehudi. I may be permitted to say, is the only state of society in which that oppressed nation is suffered to live. And the tribes without security in their possessions, without public revenue or arms, are hourly exposed to insult and rampant form of blind zeal, and active bigotry by which their lords are animated in those countries. The lands occupied by those people cover a wide extent between Messina and Kabi. They are said to be mingled also with the Upper Fula tribes, eastward of Timbuktu, and in many parts of Maror. they have inheritance or are employed as artificers in the cities and towns. As we live among the heathens, says Bashan, so do the Jews in Meroah and Philani with our brethren, but they are not esteemed like us. For they are a people hardened in their sins and obstinate in their fidelity. The anger of Yah is upon them, and therefore are they given to the rule of the Muslims. The Arab Bashar goes on to describe the Jews as brown colored instead of the black color of the Ashanti. The Arabic word Yudan and the word Negro, which is the Portuguese and Spanish word for black, were bywords that were used to describe the Jews or the house or tribe of Judah. Now, this was foretold in Deuteronomy chapter 28, verse 37, where it reads, "And thou shalt become an astonishment, a proverb, and a byword among all nations, whither Yah shall lead thee." Now, we will discuss another byword for the Jews, or for the house of Judah. It's one of the more controversial bywords. It's a byword that today causes hurt and pain and often great sadness. However, this controversial byword can be used to identify the true identity of the so-called African American today. The byword is spelled Nigger. It was a byword used to identify slaves that were captured in the Niger Delta region. However, Niger is a relatively modern pronunciation of the word. During the time of antiquity, it was pronounced nigger. Now, the New World Encyclopedia tells us that the Portuguese arrived at the Niger Delta on the coast in 1473. By the 17th century, coastal trade had supplanted the trans-Saharan trade, mostly dealing in slaves. During the years when the slave trade flourished, nearly half the total number of slaves exported from Africa came from the Niger Delta, which came to be known as the Slave Coast. Next, let's read about the people that were taken as slaves who lived in the Niger River region. This next reference comes from John Ogilby of London, who was the official cosmographer and geographic printer of King Charles. And it reads, "Many Jews also are scattered over this region, some natives boasting themselves of Abraham's seed, inhabiting both sides of the river Niger." Others are Asian strangers who fled thither either from the desolation of Jerusalem by Vespasian or from Judea, wasted and depopulated by the Romans, Persians, Saracens, and Christians, or else such came out of Europe, whence they were banished, out of parts of Italy in the year 1342, out of Spain in the year 1462, out of the Low Countries in 1350, out of France in 1403, out of England in 1422. These all differ in habit and are divided into several tribes, having no dominion, though both wealthy and numerous, but despised of all nations, and so abominated by the Turks that they are not permitted to be Mohammedans, unless first baptized, and then no otherwise made use of than to receive their customs and to gather their taxes. Skipping to the bottom paragraph, it reads, "The idolaters are numerous in Negro land, Upper and Lower Ethiopia, and towards the great ocean, except, as we hinted before, some few who by the industry of the Portuguese and the Spain have been converted and baptized in several places. In case you're wondering, who are these black Jews living in the Niger River Delta region on the west coast of Africa? We need look no further than another book authorized by the official cosmographer and geographic printer of King Charles himself. This comes from a book called America, an Accurate Description of the New World by John Ogilvie. On page 574, it reads that John III, King of Portugal, sent a colony thither above 200 years before, whom though the unwholesome air destroyed, yet the place was not left desolate. For he sent new inhabitants, who first settled Guinea, next in Angola, and lastly on the island of St. Thomas, that so they might be better used to the air. That the said king sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion, and caused their children to be baptized, from whom, coming thither in great numbers, most of the present inhabitants were descended. So according to John Ogilvie of London, the children of the Jews that refused to embrace the Roman religion were placed on the west coast of Africa in great numbers, most of which the present inhabitants were descended. In being baptized, a mark was placed on their hands and on their foreheads. As we read, the cardinals that was to obfuscate being come with the canons of that church, the ceremony was begun with blessing the water. After the proselytes, presented by their godfathers, advanced everyone in his turn and declared their desire to be baptized, then they leaned over the front. The cardinal baptized them, pouring water on their foreheads out of a large silver spoon, and gave them their names. According to the cosmographer and geographic printer of the king, along with additional references, the black Portuguese and Spanish Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa in great numbers. Now, let's look at additional references to see why the Jews were placed on the west coast of Africa. The Jews and Moors in Spain, page 214, and it reads, the king's creed awoke again simultaneously with the reawakening of his greed. He issued an edict which threw even that of Torquemada in the shade. All Jewish children below 14 years of age were torn from their parents' arms, dragged into the church, baptized. Those under 3 years of age were given to Christians to receive a Christian education, or in other words, to be raised as slaves. Those between 3 and 10 years of age were put on board of a ship, conveyed to the newly discovered unwholesome island of St. Thomas, called the Isles of Perdition, which was colonized by Portuguese condemned criminals, or Portuguese Jews, condemned by the Inquisition, to fare there as best they could. Those between 10 and 14 years were sold as slaves. Then indeed the cup of their affliction was full to the brim. It was a stern truth in which Lemieux uttered when he said, "The Jews have experienced fully the unequal skill of the church in administering pain. Mothers cast themselves at the feet of the tyrants and pitifully begged to be taken with their babies. They were heartlessly thrust aside. Hundreds of mothers, mad with despair, ran behind the ships as they carried off the idols of their heart and perished in the waves. The serene fortitude which the exiled people had borne so many and such grievous calamities gave way at last and was replaced by the wildest paroxysms of despair. Piercing shrieks of anguish filled the land. Childless and heartbroken and brokenhearted, they now sought to leave the land, but they were told that they had forfeited their right, and they were given the choice between baptism and slavery. Thousands, after enduring all that they did, after leaving the beloved Spain and all their wealth and ease, submitted to baptism now, in the hope of being reunited with their children. Thousands were sold as slaves. Yet, prior to being sold, they were submitted to tortures, cruelties, outrageous too revolting, too repulsive, too heart-rending to be here narrated. Now, to pause here just for a moment, just keep in mind that these were black Portuguese and Spanish Jews, as the previous references have pointed out. All right, as we continue, terror seized upon the native Portuguese Jews when they helplessly beheld the cruelties to which their Spanish brethren were subjected. They knew then themselves could not escape the wrath of the church much longer. They thought of flight, and well had it been for them had they made their escape then. While they were making secret preparations, John II died, 1495. He had been afflicted on the very day when the ships laden with the Jewish exile children set sail for the isle of the condemned criminals with a strange, painful malady, and had lingered ever since. So King John II, who shipped the children of the Jews to the west coast of Africa, became sick the very day that the ships departed from Portugal. Let's keep reading. It says, his own promising son and successor preceded him into the grave. His cousin Manuel ascended the throne. He was the counterpart of his predecessor, kind-hearted, a promoter of learning, eager to further the interests of his country by discoveries abroad and by commerce at home. Immediately, he disenfranchised the Jewish exiles sold into slavery, promised to recall the condemned children, and issued an edict in which he commanded kind treatment to the Jews and prohibited accusations against them. In their great joy, the native Portuguese Jews sent an embassy to him, offering him large sums of money voluntarily as a token of their gratitude. The king thanked them, reassured them of his goodwill, but refused to be paid for human kindness. But again had destiny decreed that a woman was to play an ignoble part in the tragic history of the Jews. A marriage was proposed between Manuel of Portugal and the daughter of Ferdinand and Isabel of Spain. Manuel was rejoiced with the proposal. Already he saw himself in the near future king of united Spain and Portugal, and of the entire New World. But Satan stepped between, dipped his pen in gall, in writing the marriage contract, demanded as one of the conditions the immediate expulsion from Portugal of all the Jews, both natives, which is the Portuguese, and exiles, which were the Spanish, the king hesitated. The fanatical daughter of the fanatical parents persisted. Argument made her more vehement. Torquemada might as well be proud of his pupil. The possession of vast empires and of the most powerful crown of Europe tempted, and the temper conquered. He had purchased his right to the Princess of Spain at a sacrifice of thousands and thousands of lives, and with the destruction of the very pillars of his nation's prosperity. On the 30th of November, 1497, the marriage contract was signed. And on the 20th of the following month appeared the edict of the expulsion of the Jews from Portugal. The scene of mourning and wailing, heartrending cries which resounded in Spain re-echoed in Portugal, only the more painful because of the terrible knowledge that they had since acquired of the meaning of the word expulsion. Manuel soon regretted his signing away his most industrious, most intelligent, and most prosperous citizens. But the marriage contract held him fast, and the Spanish queen kept a watchful eye on him, and Torquemada upon both. The prospective vast empire and Spanish crown still dazzled his eyes. He planned a strategy. He thought he could force the parents to embrace Christianity and to remain if he once succeeded in getting all their children into his power and into the Christian faith. He gave secret orders for the repetition of the atrocious crime of having all children under 14 years of age seized from their mother's bosom and father's arm, dispersed through the kingdom to be baptized, and brought up as Christians. The secret became known. Portugal again re-echoed the wails of stricken ones. Frantic mothers threw their children into deep wells or rivers. Mothers were known to take their babies from their breast and tear them limb from limb, rather than resign them to Christians. They would rather know the bodies of their children in the grave and their released spirit in heaven than have them adopt a faith into which Satan sent his friends. With all the parents' opposition, the king's order was executed. Many accepted baptism, but not enough to please the king, and to wreak vengeance upon them for thwarting his wishes, he revoked his edict, seized all who had not yet fled, and sold them for slaves. What happened to the children? What happened to the children? What became of the children of these rebellious Jews that refused to embrace the Roman religion? What became of the children of the Jews that sacrificed their lives, and in some cases their children, to make a stand for the laws, statutes, and commandments and their beliefs in the Most High? What became of those children? In order to answer this question, we need to look no further than the ones who enslaved the children themselves. But we first need to understand that the Jews of Spain and Portugal claim their descent from the tribe of Judah. As the following reference reads, it says, the Spanish and the Portuguese Jews claim their descent from the tribe of Judah. And with that in mind, the slavers who took the children and carried the children to the west coast of Africa name the place that they sent the children after the children. On the west coast of Africa, the Portuguese slavers named the slave coast the Kingdom of Judah. And the next reference also confirms that the children that were taken to the west coast of Africa resided in the Kingdom of Judah. As the following quote reads, it reads, Wida or Judah or Ajuda is a city old, frequented since the 16th century by the Portuguese slavers who gave it its name. Its inhabitants were said to be Judaic, and they were indeed considered as a remnant of the scattered tribes of Israel. And the next quote reads, east of the Great Popo begins the Dahomey territory, guarded by the important town of Gliwice, known to Europeans by various names of Fida, Hueda, Wida, Wida. The old writers called it Judah, and its inhabitants were said to be Jews, while the neighboring river, Alala, whose real name was Ephraim, during the flourishing days of the slave coast, from 16 to 18,000 were annually transported from Judah, as the Portuguese called this place. All right, so let's do a brief recap of what we've learned so far. We learned that the Portuguese shipped the children of the rebellious house of Judah, or the tribe of Judah, who refused to embrace the Roman religion. These children were sent or shipped to the west coast of Africa in great numbers. We also learned that the Portuguese named the place that they sent the children of the house or tribe of Judah to. These Portuguese named the place after the children. They named the place the Kingdom of Judah. And we also learned that these children were raised to be Christians and to be slaves. Now, let's cross-check our findings using additional references. Now, previous references show the king of Portugal taking all the children of the rebellious house or tribe of Judah from the ages of 14 years of age and younger to be raised as Christians and slaves. However, additional references show this age was later increased to children in their 20s. For example, in this reference, the Jews of Spain and Portugal and the Inquisition, it reads, a fresh edict went forth that all the children between the ages of 14 and 20 should also be taken from their parents and baptized, and multitudes were dragged forcibly by their hair and by their arms into the churches and compelled to receive the waters of baptism, together with new names being afterwards given over to those who undertook to instruct them in the Christian faith. Now, let's check the Transatlantic Slave Trade database, which contains almost 36,000 slaving voyages on record. We will use its database of roughly 96,000 slave entries to review the ages of Jews enslaved. Let's see if these slaves were middle-aged men and women in their 30s and 40s, as often seen in modern-day portrayals of this transatlantic slave trade. Or let's see if there was something more sinister in the cargo of these slave ships. According to the Transatlantic Slave Trade Database, the number of slaves above the age of 30 was only 6 to 7%. Roughly 6 to 7% of slaves were above the age of 30. This means that roughly 94 to 93% of those on the transatlantic slave ships were younger than 30 years old. Closer inspection shows a disturbing truth of those that were on the ships. And Bible scripture specifically foretold that the children of Israel would go into captivity because Israel abandoned Yah's laws, statutes, and commandments. Of the 93 to 94% of those that were under 30 years of age, 2% were babies and toddlers. 27% were of elementary school age, and roughly 16% were of high school age. And of those on the transatlantic slave ships, roughly 21% were of college age. And lastly, 28% were young adults in their mid to upper 20s. And this was foretold in the scriptures as far as the children going into captivity. Deuteronomy 28 verse 32 reads, "Thy sons and thy daughters shall be given unto another people, and thine eyes shall look and fail with longing for them all the day long, and there shall be no might in thine hand." Deuteronomy 28 verse 41 reads, "Thou shalt beget sons and daughters, but thou shalt not enjoy them, for they shall go into captivity." Verse 6 reads, "The children also of Judah and the children of Jerusalem have ye sold unto the Grecians, that ye might remove them far from their border." It was foretold that they would be forcefully removed from their borders in Joel 3, and that Judah would be scattered throughout the world. Deuteronomy 28 verse 64 reads, "And Yah shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other. And there thou shalt serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone." Now, according to the scriptures, the children of Judah were scattered across the four corners of the earth into slavery. And as the references stated time and time again, they were to be raised as Christians and slaves, as the following references confirm. The top references read, "To receive a Christian education," or in other words, to be raised as slaves. Or our next reference at the bottom reads, "Sold all those Jews for slaves that refused to embrace the Roman religion, and caused their children to be baptized." And this is the baptism into Christianity. And it says, "From whom these children coming thither," which is the west coast of Africa, "in great numbers, most of the present inhabitants were descended." Now, the children of the rebellious house of Judah, who refused to embrace the Roman religion, were raised in the Christian doctrine. These slaves shipped to the new world learned the principles of their new faith from their masters. As the following quote reads, it reads, "We had the best mistress and master in the world. They was Christian folk, and they taught us to be Christian-like too. Every Sunday morning, old master would have all us to the house, while he would sing and pray and read the Bible to us all. Old master taught us not to be bad. He taught us to be good. He taught us to never steal or nor to tell false tales, and not to do anything that was bad. He said, you will reap what you sow, and that you sow it single and reap it double. I learned that when I was a little child, and I ain't forget it yet. When I got grown, I went the Baptist way. God called my papa to preach. Old master let him preach in the kitchen and in the backyard under the trees. On preaching day, old master took his whole family and all the slaves to church with him. Now, in addition to learning to never steal and to never tell false tales, they were also taught that the laws, statutes, and commandments of the Most High were done away with. They were also taught new holy days and to disregard the holy days of the Bible. And they were also taught that they were the descendants of Ham, which is Gentiles, instead of being the children of Israel. The next reference reads, Pope Pius V, by nature a sinister ecclesiastic, delighting in persecution, who treated Jews as the cursed children of Ham, was succeeded by Gregory VIII, who had been skillfully trained to fanaticism by the Jesuits and Tridentine monks. As regard Jews, Gregory was a most consistent follower of the cruelty of his predecessor. In summary, the children received a Roman makeover, courtesy of the Pope, the one who calls himself the Vicar of Christ, which means the replacement of Christ, whose name equals 666, which is the number of Satan. They caused the children of Judah to embrace the very religion their forefathers died and often made great sacrifice opposing. Now, you may wonder, what is the difference between these new Roman Christian Jews and the Israelites of old? Well, let's take a closer look. Only did writers know that the children of the rebellious house of Judah were sent into slavery and were scattered to the four corners of the earth, they also knew who held the children of Judah captive. And for that, let's read a quick reference from Modern Judaism from a book that was written in the 1800s. And it reads, first, that the descendants of Esau, the sworn enemies of the descendants of Jacob, even to the end of the world, were at first a small nation, inhabiting Mount Seir and the adjacent country, contiguous to the land of Canaan, that they were easily confined within their own limits, as long as the Israelites enjoyed a great and formidable empire in Canaan. But that after the powerful republic of the 12 tribes was destroyed by the Assyrians and the Babylonians, they wonderfully increased in numbers and strength, extended their dominion towards the west, spread their colonies far and wide, subjugated Italy, founded Rome and the Roman Empire, at length entirely overturned the Jewish state, which had been restored after the termination of the Babylonian captivity. The second temple being destroyed by Titus Vespasian, and that in the present day, professing the religion of Jesus of Nazareth, which they were the first of all nations to embrace. They hold the dominion over all Europe, Esau detaining in captivity his brother Jacob, at least as far as regards the tribe of Judah, till his Messiah, Ben David or Yeshua, shall appear. So during the time of the 1800s, these writers wrote that the descendants of Esau detained in captivity his brother Jacob, at least as far as regards the tribe of Judah. And just to read a little bit more, it reads, secondly, that the prophecies of the prophets against Esau, Edom, Seir, and the cities of Edom, especially those of Isaiah, Jeremiah, and Obadiah, have not yet received their full accomplishment, for that thou, the house of Esau, has experienced some particular judgments of God on account of the injuries at different periods of time and afflicted upon Israel. Yet the final vengeance on account of that last and greatest injury, the destruction of the second temple by Titus, and listen, the transportation of the Jews into captivity, in which they are still most opprobriously detained, is yet impending over it, to be executed in the time of the Messiah. All right. Well, as you can see, this reference points to the Jews being in captivity to Esau. And according to the scriptures, that they would remain in captivity or in the land of their captivity until the Messiah returns. Deuteronomy chapter 30, verse 10. Therefore, fear thou not, O my servant Jacob, saith Yah, neither be dismayed, O Israel, for lo, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed from the land of their captivity. Now, as a whole, there's really only one people on the face of the earth that as a people still live in the land that they once served as captives. And it is the same people that were scattered across the four corners of the earth via the transatlantic slave trade. And it is also the same people that were placed on the west coast of Africa in great numbers by the expulsion edicts and by the Inquisition. All right, so let's keep reading. It says, I will save thee from afar, and thy seed, your children, from the land of their captivity. And Jacob shall return, and shall be in rest, and be quiet, and none shall make him afraid. For I am with thee, saith Yah, to save thee. though I make a full end of all nations, whether I have scattered thee, yet will I not make a full end of thee, but I will correct thee in measure, and will not leave thee altogether unpunished. For thus saith Yah, thy bruise is incurable, and thy wound is grievous. There is none that plead thy cause, that thou mayest be bound up, that has no healing medicines. All thy lovers have forgotten thee, they seek thee not. For I have wounded thee with a wound of an enemy, with the chastisement of a cruel one. For the multitude of thine iniquity, or the word iniquity means lawlessness, so it means for the multitude of thine lawlessness, because of thy sins, breaking of the commandments, which sins were increased. Let's read that again. It says, for the multitude of thine lawlessness, because thy sins were increased. Verse 15 reads, why criest thou for thine affliction? Thy sorrow is incurable for the multitude of thine lawlessness. Because thy sins were increased, I have done these things unto thee. Therefore, all they that devour thee shall be devoured. All thine adversaries, every one of them, shall go into captivity. And they that spoil thee shall be a spoil. And all they that prey upon thee will I give for a prey. For I will restore health unto thee. I will heal thee of thy wounds, saith Yah. Because they called thee an outcast, saying Yah, this is Zion, whom no man seeketh after. Thus saith Yah, behold, I will bring again the captivity of Jacob's tent, or the freedom, and have mercy on his dwellings. And the city shall be built upon her own heap, and the place and the palace shall remain after the manner thereof. And out of them shall proceed thanksgiving, and the voice of them that make merry. I will multiply them, and they shall not be few. I will also glorify them, they shall not be small. Their children also shall be as aforetime, and their congregation shall be established before me. And I will punish all that oppress them, and their nobles shall be of themselves, and their governor shall proceed from the midst of them. And I will cause him to draw near, and he shall approach unto me. And who is this that engaged his heart to approach me, saith Yah? And you shall be my people, and I will be your Elohim. Behold, the whirlwind of Yah goeth forth with fury, a continuing whirlwind. It shall fall with pain upon the head of the wicked. The fierce anger of Yah shall not return until he have done it, and until he have performed the intents of his heart. In the latter days you shall consider. All right, well, we've reached the end of Hidden Hebrews Part 2, and hopefully you've learned a lot. Hopefully you've learned, according to first-hand accounts, that it was the Jews of the tribe of Judah, or the house of Judah. Their children were placed on the west coast of Africa in great numbers because their parents refused to embrace the Roman religion. And these children were to be raised as Christians and as slaves. And through the transatlantic slave trade, these children were shipped to the four corners of the earth. And that to this day, they live in the lands in which they were once held captives until Christ returns. Now, until then, the children are charged to live peacefully among men, and above all, turn back to the laws, statutes, and commandments as best they can. And of course, have faith in Christ. All right. Well, hopefully you enjoyed the video. If so, please click like and subscribe, and have a great day, and shalom.
Deuteronomy 28. And it shall come to pass, if thou shalt hearken diligently unto the voice of the Most High thy power, to observe and do all his commandments, which I command thee this day, that the Most High God will set thee on high above all nations of the earth. But if thou wilt not hearken to the voice of the Most High, to observe and do all his commandments, then curses shall come upon thee and overtake thee.
All these lies and delusions, wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened, I am awakened.
Israelites seek out the ways of the heathen to make a covenant with Satan's government. Turn their face away from the Most High, evil desire. 2 Kings 17 said they passed their sons and daughters through the fire. They begin cutting divine spiritual ties, clinging to the heathen lies. Evil spirits bind, breaking souls, breaking spirits, ripping flesh, breaking minds. Running from the Most High wrath on the blood-stained path. 70 AD, Israelites fall. The Most High's chosen seed go into captivity. Hebrew Israelites watch nations rise, they watch nations fall. Four beasts, Babylon, Medo-Persia, Greece. We pray for the fall of the fourth beast. Under the iron foot of Rome, we long to go home. A hopeless nation lies dead in the valley of the dry bones. Simulation of Shemites to Hamite clones. Israelites wrong.
All these lies and delusions, wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened, I am awakened.
Israelites enslaved to build a wicked nation. No true identity, only tribulations. Fed scraps of swine, we eat the worst of the animal kind. Used, confused, they set us in high places to be abused. Control the tribe, control the tribe. Our leaders take bribes to continue the lies. Fourth beast behind the scene in the skies, watching with the all-seeing eye. The heathen take flight into a new world order. Hebrews sleepwalking into a wicked system that's gonna fall. Awake, awake, reject Babylon. Hear the trumpet of awakening throughout the day and night. Awake, the Most High's people, the Israelites. The earth has swallowed the flood of deception. The harvest ripe for collection. His people are walking, standing like a mighty army. The Most High has summoned, the Hebrews are coming. Awake, come out of captivity. Awake, you who sleep. Arise, receive the Most High's laws and commandments. We are the Israelites.
In my mind, all these lies and delusions, wake me up, show me a new dawn. Open your eyes, rise, children of the light. I am awakened, I am awakened. Clear my mind and my soul. Gave me a new mind. Oh, made me whole. I rise up.
Quam.
I'll be a new light.
Quam.
I am awakened.
Quam.
I am awakened.
Quam. Yasha.